In this video, which is part 9 of how to create a custom candlestick chart in Chart.js, where you have now our moving average here. However, the moving average here is slightly different because there are multiple ways to do it. And this is one way to do it, which I personally don't really agree with, but I want to give you this option so you might consider if you need that, because I look at resources and this was one of the ways to do it. And basically how it works is it will calculate based on the data here. It starts with this closing data and then grabs all of these data here. And in the future, every time for the moving average of 3, it grabs the 3 data points. So if you like this style, you can use this, or else you can probably skip and go to the next video where we're going to do it a different way. So that's an option that you can consider. So let's start to look what we're going to make now. And in this part, we're going to create a moving average that is a bit more different compared to the one we have here. So first of all, I want to fine tune the moving average because right now we had it, the way we did it was not that correct. But what I did notice, there's a flaw in here, but I'm going, and as I researched, I discovered 3 different ways how they're calculating moving average. And I'm going to do one way, which I personally disagree with. So this is very important, but I'm going to make a next video where I will make the one that makes for me the most logical sense. So basically, there's 3 ways how they calculate moving average. First way is to start from beginning, and then they calculate this value with the next value and that one. So for example, moving average number 3. So then we have our 3-day moving average. Then we have calculated 3 days starting here. If this would be today, then we'll calculate the other 2 in front of it as well. So the next day and the day after that. This doesn't make sense for me personally, because if you do this, you're basically trying to predict the future based on future data, which doesn't make sense. Anyway, I searched on multiple resources. This is one way to do it. Another way is basically what I personally believe is you calculate the moving average based on historic 3 closing data, the closing price of 3 data points, and then you do the moving average on that. What I do notice that this data here, what we have, is maybe not really accurate. If this would be the 3rd day at the moment, then we should start it here for going forward, because this here will get the values from the days before. So that would be far more logical. And I find another one where they calculate, if we would be here starting, we will calculate this date, and that date together. And that is, again, I disagree on, because that would mean that you need to have future data to predict the future. Well, if you could do that, then basically you don't need a moving average, because then you have insight in the future. Anyway, well, we can ignore that one. But anyway, so that doesn't make sense as well. But what we're going to do now is we're going to use here basically the one I personally disagree on. So that is here, here, and here, and we're going to have future. Because why I disagree on this, if you have a moving average of 200, basically 200 data points forward, you cannot predict anything because you have no data. So anyway, doesn't matter. I'm going to make these options and you can select which one you prefer yourself. So let's scroll down here. And then what we're going to do here is more down here. This is the moving average. Basically here, this first of all is just not correct, or this is far too hard. What if you have here 20 or 200? Then you would have to multiply this by 200. That is absolutely not what we want to do. That doesn't make any sense here. So what we're going to do is we're going to fine tune this. What we're going to do is I'm going to just comment this out. We're going to start again here with a new item, although it will consist of most of this here. What I do want to grab is at least this one here. This one should be the same, and I guess the moving average. So this formula here, that's the one we're not going to use. So then I'll just leave it in there because you might want to use this. But I'm going to create now our own. So what we need to do here is we're going to do again here a for loop. This for loop is fine. And then what we want to do here is start to calculate the items. Because what we did here, the mean value, this is fine basically by calculating 3 items. But we don't want to do it like this. This is too manually. So what we want to do here is to do a not a for loop. We want to slice the array basically. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say here constant mean equals, and then we're going to grab here the closing price, and then we're going to say a dot slice. And what that slice really does is the following. It's a array method for slicing the array, where it removes, or basically just think like a pie. You cut a slice of the pie. So in our array, we only want a specific part of it, which is data point 1, 2, and 3, depending on the index. So that's basically what we're doing here. So we slice that part out and we grab that as a separate value, and that's the mean value here. So what we're going to put in here is we're going to say here I. This is the starting point, and that is I. We start with 0, and then it loops through that consistently. And then what I'm going to say here, say comma, and then we're going to say average. And the average would mean basically the value where it ends. And in this case, it's number 3. However, if the I is dynamic, it will increment with +1 because of this here. This average, which is number 3, should increment +1 as well. So we slice every time one item afterwards. So basically +1 or +i. So I'm just going to do here +i consistently. We don't do +1 but +i, because the increment here, if this is 2, the average would be 3 + 2 would be 5. And then again, you have then 3 items. So once we have this, we can do a semicolon here, and if I do now console log, you will see now we do the meaning, save, refresh. Open up developer tab, and you can see here right now it doesn't work or it doesn't draw anything because the data here is missing. Don't worry about it, we're going to work on that. But you can see here now the slice, and it starts 1.1, 1.2, 1.5, which is here 1.1 closing, 1.2 closing, and then 1.5. So it does recognize this here. The next one starts with 1, 2, 1, 5, and 1, 4, which is correct because this one is 1.2, 1.5, 1.4. So it keeps on going until we hit probably somewhere at the end here, because at that moment, as you can see here, we're missing data. Why? Because it's future projected data. So here I don't want to make like a estimates or calculate or multiply it by 3, because if you do that you will get like false data. So we don't want to do this. So basically our line will start here and will go to here, and that's it. It doesn't continue on because it cannot get any new data. So for this, now we have this one here. What I want to do then is I want to sum the value in the mean. So we're going to say constant and say sum total. This sum total will be the mean dot reduce method. The reduce method is basically summing the values in the array. They call it the reduce method to reduce it to one single value. So then what I'm going to say here, I will have basically two values, the total and the number or value argument. You can use anything here. Then I'm going to make sure that is a callback functionality, because it's a function itself. So we're going to put in here the function arrow expression. And then within here, what I want to do is the following. I want to say here return, because what I want to return is basically this value plus, or is it the total plus value. And how does it basically calculate? It calculates the array, which is this one here, then one value, start with 0, so plus 0, this value, then that will be maybe 1.1, then plus, and then we'll continue on. That's 1.1 plus 1.2, etc., etc. So just some value. So then we're going to say here return total plus number. And once we have this, what I want to do here is going to say now, let's do a console log of the sum total. If I save this, refresh, alright, number is not defined, of course, because I put in here value. Could be value, number, anything you want. But of course, you need to be consistent. So then we have the values here, and I guess it will calculate here 1 point something. So 1.1 plus 1.2 would be 2.3, and then plus 1 that will be 3.7, I guess, or 3.6. I have no idea what was the value we are calculating on. So let me check. 1 point. What is it closing here? 1.5. I guess, are we correct here? I guess we should be correct. It should be. It's automatically calculated. Anyway, doesn't matter so much. Let's see here, 177. Let's see here what happens. We get all of these data values, so we should be here somewhere correct. So what I'm going to do here now is we're going to calculate that. And what we're going to do here is, let's see, we want to have this sum value should be eventually divided by 3 items. So what I'm going to say here, moving average, and then later on I just want to double check if my numbers are truly correct. And I'm going to say here dot push sum total divide by what exactly? the moving average value or the average value that we have. If I save this, and if I do here now console log to avoid then the loop, we should have here a moving average, and that would be all the values all together. There you are. I guess 3.6 was here down, and this is 3.8. That should be correct because 1.1, 1.2, and then 1.5 would make 3.8. And you can see here it will continue on with this. So that will be 1.2 plus 1.5, which is 2.7. And then we have this here, that will be 2.7, and that will be 4.1. That is correct here as well. So now we have this. I want to have the numbers in here, but you can see here, all right, this is already working nicely, but we have an issue here, which is we want to make sure we remove these data here. Why? What happens here? It divides by 3, but here there's no more additional value, so the division here is too deep. So what I need to do here, simple if statement, and this is the reason why I disagree with this formula, but I give you this option. You can choose, and if you don't want it, continue on to the next video. It's very simple. So then what I'm going to do here, we're going to say here an if statement, I guess, if the let's see here, we have the mean, we have the slice, so we're going to grab here the mean. So if the mean would be, we can say here, if the mean dot length equals a length of 3 or equals length of average, in that case I want to show a value, and then else do nothing. It's very simple, because then if you do this, save, refresh, you can see here you get the values, and this is my point here. If you have 200, MA200, you have a problem because 200 data points are not being shown. So this is one way to do it. Next video I'm going to do another way, which I am big favor of, where we start at the beginning or calculate based on beginning until we have the right amount of data, and then we can start to project, make a projection in the future. So that will be in the next video.